while since an Amarok stream, and right out of the gate we get a little bit of weather shenanigans. There's a lot more later, so don't worry about that. I have lowered the volume significantly, however, because it was incredibly loud, and he would comment in the background, muffled by the wind and storm sounds. That is very, very loud. As with most all Amarok streams, another thing that's incredibly loud is his music. Again and again. He doesn't seem to understand you can make separate audio channels for this stuff, and he actually spent a good chunk of time trying to figure out a way where the audience could hear him and he could still hear his music without it being too loud. It still ended up too loud. So I've cut portions of his audio and we'll have to reiterate whatever he said there because the music's just way too loud. And if YouTube gets a sniff of copyrighted music, then oh boy, we know where that goes. So yeah, I'm gonna play it safe. I'm gonna do what I always do, mute those portions, do what I can to reiterate them. Parts where he says something very important and I can actually hear what he's saying with my choppy audio nonsense, I will have that intact. He does play some dinosaur sounds, for instance, and I'm able to keep that, but I have to lower the volume, make sure my stuff is playing in the background, and chop it up a little bit, basically put some filters for whenever he goes quiet, or his audio goes quiet, the sounds the sounds he's playing, that is, it sort of cuts off right there. So it's like I think they call it an audio gate, where it'll allow certain volumes in and then cut it off right there. That way it cuts off whatever music he's playing in the background. Unfortunately, that only works when his music is relatively quiet, so whenever he jacks up the volume, I can't do that. So I'm gonna have to just repeat whatever he's saying in that portion and do my best, I guess. Woohoo. Anyhow, let's go on to the next clip. This one, oh yeah, before I go, I guess I should go back to the usual. This clip was chosen because of the storm sounds. We've not seen heads nor tails of storms in ages, so this is our first little hint of it. We get a fair amount more later, as I said, but I'm gonna keep this in order, so it's gonna be a bit later. Anyhow, it was chosen because storm stuff, visually there's not a whole lot going on, but the storm sounds are really nice, I'll give them that. Like, I really enjoy it. I just hope in-game it's not quite as loud as it was here, because it was very loud, and I'm not sure if that's because of his audio settings, or the storms are actually just that loud. Anyhow, on to the next.
So the AI do have like perception on audio, so like footsteps and voices and vocals and stuff. They react to them the same way as if they've seen you. But the difference is that the vocal needs to be like produced from within their perception range, which is generally quite small for AI.
This is one of those ones where I did my best to retain what he was saying, while also, you know, being able to cut out the audio that's music. Anyhow, it's obvious why this one was included. He's explaining a little bit more on the AI and how it functions and how it detects players, so that's pretty important and definitely very interesting, especially if you know, play the game. AI can indeed hear you, be it footsteps or sounds you're making, and it will react however it sees fit in that regard. So I imagine if, say, a Dryo AI heard you, it would want to skitter away. If a Predator AI heard you, it'd want to skitter towards you, that sort of thing. This one, his music was way too loud, I couldn't properly isolate it, so I'm just going to reiterate basically what he was saying. He was talking about the struggle right now with the Pterodactylus AI. I keep wanting to say Tupendactylus. It's so close. If you hear me do a long pause, it's because I'm trying my best not to say Tupendactylus, because it just keeps happening. Anyway, Pterodactylus. The AI is flying way too low. They weren't getting added to something. He said getting added to there, and then he trailed off, and he never completed what he was saying, but I imagine it's one of their little logic tree thingies, where, oh hey, we're going to switch from wandering around to attacking, for instance. I can't say for sure if that's what it was. Another thing you'll notice pretty quick when it comes to Amarok streams is sometimes he'll start a thought and then he trails off and he never finishes it. I've had several points in which I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for him to continue, and I'm like, okay, is it going to go anywhere? And then I have to scrap the whole thing because I have him start something and then he never finishes it. So, yeah, because, I mean, why am I gonna have half a question and no answer sort of deal? Whatever the case, issue with the Pterodactylus. Issues with the Pterodactylus. I told you I'd do it. This is going to be throughout the stream where he's going to be adjusting how high they're flying, how low they're flying, and collision. That was a big one, which I think I also had to cut the audio for later on because, again, the music. They kept colliding with each other, be it while they were flying or while they were trying to take off from a corpse, and it resulted in all of them falling to the ground. Or when they'd try to attack the Utah, for instance, they'd go up close and then they'd just bump into him and fall to the ground. That was a bulk of what this stream was, more or less. However, there was one interesting note after this, which again I can't put in directly because of the music. But someone was asking, I imagine, which of the Unreal Engine updates they're going to go to. Like right now, they're at 5 or something like that. He said, and I quote as best I can, I think we'll go to 5.3 and then probably call it then, depending on how good the nanite landscape is. Pauses for a while, and then he goes, I reckon we'll stop around 5.3, maybe like 5.3.1 or whatever. So, depends. Yeah, that's basically what he said. So it sounds like they're planning on going to 5.3, and then they might, call it good, depending on the nanite landscape. Which hopefully will fix the grass problems that people keep talking about graphics-wise. I keep seeing people bring up the grass, and last I knew the devs hadn't touched the grass. No joke intended, although it writes itself. So I imagine that's part of what they're looking at? I don't know. I'm not the best with nanite. All I know is what the devs have been posting about how nice it makes things look and how it helps with optimization and all that fun stuff. I think it makes it less of a hassle for the engine to handle various types of foliage while also not making it look like complete garbage. That's my understanding of it. I don't know though, so I'm sure someone down below will know, and we'll be sure to leave a very long comment about that. However, I don't know. I've never worked with Unreal Engine. I did Unity when I did my little itty-bitty baby stuff, and that was ages ago, so none of this fancy stuff existed back then. But interesting to hear, and I'm sure people who are really into how the engines work and what each update brings will have a lot more appreciation for this. For me, I'm just like, well, if the game looks nice and it runs great, I'm happy, so we move on. Now for that weather shenanigans I was talking about earlier.
Get some weather going. Thunderstorm.
This one's another obvious one as to why it was included. Weather. We haven't seen weather in ages, I said that before. There's some weather. There was thunderstorm, then there was blizzard, then there was sandstorm. I believe he showed fog at one point, but it was just a slight fog. It looked exactly like the thunderstorm, just without the rain effects, but there we go. After that, he went on to the purpose of the Pterodactylus, which is basically to be really annoying. It sounds like they're going to just kind of show up sometimes when you're eating a corpse and they'll peck at you for a while and then leave. He didn't say exactly when they leave, or if he did, I didn't hear it. I skimmed through like 6 hours of streams, so I probably missed a few things, but it be that way. I'm not going to spend over 6 hours fishing through this. So, anyway, basically their purpose is spawn in, be annoying, and then leave. They can kill you. When he tests Troodon later, it does end up getting Yote, and he comes close to death later on as Utahraptor when he actually gets them to start attacking him instead of bumping into him or flying too high to actually hit him. So it looks like they might be pretty darn annoying, especially if you're playing something small. I believe he tested them on Carno later on and they barely did a thing to him. I didn't include that because it was basically nothing. It didn't do much. I didn't even know anything was going on at first. I didn't realize they'd hit him. It didn't really do much. But he does comment on how they spawn a little bit, so I'll have that play next.
So their spawning is like, it's like a % chance, and then it's like there's some randomness to it as well. They don't always spawn.
So, good news for babies, they don't always spawn. So hopefully that'll, mitigate the one-hit KOs that he showed off later when he was a tiny little Utah and just got completely obliterated by one that didn't even touch him. Anyway, on to the next. So this one was, he was testing out a Utah AI for a little teeny tiny bit. He said because it's the same class as him, it won't attack him. However, it didn't attack him even when it got attacked, so I imagine he's going to fix that. He did sound a little bit, iffy on that part. He didn't say a whole lot, it was more of a sound that he made, sort of thing. But it's nice to see the intelligent AI actually back for a little bit. It's been ages since we've seen him. It was sometime before I started doing video stuff like this. He showed off Utahraptors that would be in a group. They would hunt and stuff when they got hungry, and I think they were a little bit more aggressive when they got hungry, but they wouldn't attack everything all the time on sight. Basically point and shoot AI, which I hate. I despise AI like that. It's just like Ark, and I mean that in the most derogatory fashion possible. It's the laziest form of AI. It's basic AI. So this sort, where it kind of depends and sometimes things have to be done in order for it to actually turn on you, I like that sort of thing. It's going back to friggin' Monster Hunter again, not Rise, though. Rise didn't do this very much. It was World, where certain conditions had to be met sometimes for certain monsters to bother with attacking you. Because let's face it, something that's like 50,000 times your size usually isn't going to bother with something itty-bitty teeny-weeny next to it. It's just not going to happen. It's like a giraffe constantly going out of its way to kill a mouse because it got too close. It's stupid. In this case, of course, they're closer in size, and it's, more understandable. However, in nature, if we're going to go for realism, which, again, isn't exactly what I'm saying, but because the IL devs keep going on about realism, this is the point I'm making. When it comes to large predators, they try to avoid fights at all costs. It is very, very risky to go into a fight with another predator that is your size, or if not bigger. If you get an injured leg, an injured eye, it might be game over. You can't hunt, you can't get yourself food, you die. They realize this, and they like to, avoid fighting whenever possible. It's usually the herbivores that are the more aggressive ones because they are going to fight tooth and nail to survive, versus carnivores that can avoid fighting for the most part to live another day. That sort of thing. Anyway, but enough on that. Point is, point and click one doesn't make sense for the setting that the IL is going for, the tone, I should say, that the IL is going for. And, while Ark did do to an extent, and I'm making this very, very, very generous, Like, raptors, if I recall, wouldn't go after rexes, for example. There were size thresholds in general, but it was still point-and-click AI, with that aside. They would go after just about anything and everything, including things that were indeed much bigger than them. Like, Allosaurus, if I recall, would go after absolutely everything, including the dragon you're riding on. It's like, okay, bro, this dragon's like 3 times your size, you don't have a chance. You should be running in the opposite direction. It doesn't make sense. And I understand, it's a game. Ark is a little bit more playful. It can get away with stuff like that even if it does try to hold a realism card every now and again, but Ark isn't realistic, we know this, we move on. The Isle does try to hold some tone of realism, so that's why I'm making that point. That and overall, again, point-and-click AI, or point-and-shoot AI is just, I don't like it. It's lazy, it's dumb, it's very ye olde. You don't really need an AI guy for that sort of thing because it comes basic with almost any program ever. Get angry at this thing, attack it at all costs, be gone. But the AI that the Isle is going for and that they keep touting is supposed to have, you know, quote-unquote personalities and stuff like that. So, yes, I'm hoping we see more of this. I doubt it, but I hope we eventually do see it in the game because it would be really nice. They showed it off eons ago, we haven't seen anything of it since. They keep removing the Dino AI, I don't know what they're doing, but it is what it is. Anyhow, on to the next one before I ramble on about AI more. It was something that interested me eons ago, not as much anymore, but, you know, it's nice to see people get creative with it, and I keep hoping that the Isle will eventually do what it keeps saying it'll do. Anyway, we're moving on, let's go. This one was one to show how the AI interacts with Troodon, something smaller than it. It didn't seem to attack it initially. In fact, it kind of just left him alone for a while until he attacked it, in which case it ran into the abyss, kicking, screaming, and crying all the while. And then the Pterodactyluses descend, and, you know, you can see it. There wasn't anything meaningful said here, I just included it to show another interaction with the Utah AI as well as a little bit more of the Pterodactylus AI. And that was about it. After that was a brief, and I mean the briefest of glimpses of Dibel. You don't even really get to see it move all that much, but it's there, it exists, so of course I'm going to include it because there's a lot of Dibel fans out there, and here's your little potato, at least in some form or another. People did ask him to play Harara a fair few times, but he said it wasn't ready yet, so he didn't touch it. Then this next clip of the Pterodactylus was just showing off what they're doing, what their purpose is, a little bit further of him tweaking it, basically, because before they failed to hit him all the time, and this one it did hit him a few times. And then after that he answers, I assume it was a question in chat regarding how strong the little dudes are, so I'll let that play out here.
Well, they're not meant to be super strong, I mean, they're freaking tiny, so they're really just meant to scavenge bodies. They're not much of a meal either if you eat them.
As expected, they're just scavengers. They're not meant to be powerful. He explains that. Just some clarification for those who might have been wondering. Honestly, even as they are, they're decently strong. I mean, it did bring his Utah Raptor down to pretty low health later on when they were finally, you know, actually reliably hitting him, and it did kill a Troodon. So, I mean, they're decently strong for what they are. Alright, next up is him playing some sounds, and before I go into those, I'm going to say, like what he says here, these could be legacy noises, they might not be used, etc, they could be placeholders, blah blah blah. However, they were played there when people were asking for noises, and so here they are, in all their glory.
Stinky. Who are you calling Stinky? Guess what? Guess what animal that is? These could just be the old one. chances are they'll probably make new ones, or yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do with the sounds. I don't privy to that information. Well, I probably am, but I just don't pay enough attention. What animal is this? Bet you don't know. That is just Scarlet. Sounds exactly like you, actually. Pereira. I don't know if I should play that one. I'm gonna wake up to me getting in trouble. Nah, I should be right. I always play the sounds. Let's have a look. Let's see what we got. Oof. Nasty.
Again, very well might be Legacy or some placeholder ones. Like, one of them sounded almost like Deinosuchus for a little bit. Someone in the comments apparently said it was Legacy Harara sounds. I don't know. I never played Legacy Harara. But our final clip of the night, thank goodness, is the final showcase that he did more or less of the Pterodactylus, where they were actually hitting their target. They were turning a little bit tighter. They did have some turning issues. I forgot to mention that. You know, they're actually doing their job a little bit more, and they fled before they actually killed him. So they will have a point in which they flee. I don't know how that point is met, and if he said it, I missed it, because again, it was like 6 hours of footage. But there you go. Them doing actually kinda sorta maybe what they're intended to do, and pecking at a Utahraptor that's near a corpse. As he said, this is a randomized sort of thing. They will not always spawn, but we can expect to deal with them in the near future, according to him. He did joke about expecting QA to greenlight this overnight, by the time he wakes up. However, his tone made it sound like he was joking, so I'm pretty darn sure he was just playing around. I did not include that. Don't want to keep people confused, because we know how that goes. Anyhow, that was the stream. Overall, it was pretty good. We got a few glimpses at things. We got to see stuff we haven't seen in a while. Got to see some new stuff. All that sort of fun things and whatnot. I've talked enough in this one. I don't have to say much more. I will give my thoughts, however, because, why not? It was a nice stream. It was fun. It was difficult to go through. Ones where talking is included are always more time consuming than, say, Brian's. And I can't speed this one up the same way I do with his, because there's a lot more to take in. So doing it piece by piece here, like what I do with Dondi's, is just all around easier. It does sound a bit choppy at times, and I'm still not the greatest at voiceovers. I doubt I ever will be, which I've said. This isn't my forte, this is not my passion. However, it is what it is. I'll do what I have to. But hopefully everything's in the correct spot, in the correct order, and where it should be. If something's out of place, if something appears that shouldn't have been there, oops. I try to catch these things while I'm editing it, but some stuff is no doubt going to slip by every now and again, and it is what it is. I can't catch everything, and I mean, even when I look at the bigger YouTubers, I'll see some mistakes in every now and again, like the dreaded only your left ear is going to enjoy this video sort of thing, which hopefully mine have never done yet. I haven't caught it if it has, but I hope not. Anyhow, I hope you all have a great day, night, whatever time it is when you see this. And goodbye!
Thank you.